I was sitting at my desk in Washington, D.C., working for Defenders of Wildlife at the time when the news first broke of the explosion on the oil rig.
And it was shocking as it unfolded. We just watched kind of with horror as we saw like the day get worse and worse.
So what they knew back on April 20th, 2010 is that 11 workers had died in this massive explosion in an oil rig way offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. At the time, that was tragedy enough. But what happened over the next several days and then several months was almost this slow motion car wreck that was happening.
I went down to the Gulf a few weeks after the event. There was a trip for many of us who'd worked on these issues for years, and that I think is probably the most hard-hitting moment for me.
It was horrifying. It was very soon after the spill happened that Defenders of Wildlife and SELC joined together to bring the first lawsuit following the spill.
Because we learned just days after the spill, while the oil was still flowing, that the government was going forward with lease sales while it was still unable to control the spewing Macondo well. One of the things we learned working in the Gulf during the course of a spill is that it's very difficult to stop offshore drilling in an area when it's been established for 30 years.
So one of the big takeaways for me is for an area like the Atlantic that hasn't had offshore drilling, now is our time to save these special places.
I grew up here in South Carolina. I spent all my summers on the coast, on the water. My parents had a boat since, before I was born. We used to go out there, the cast net, meet the shrimp boats at the dock and see what all kind of little creatures they brought in other than shrimp. But this is really, part of my history, and I just don't think there's a place for it here in South Carolina.
This is our chance to save the Atlantic. We need to stop it before it starts. We need to make sure that these communities are never facing the type of damage and destruction that the Gulf of Mexico faced. That was enough of a tragedy. We need to learn lessons from that and not repeat it.